Hello, and welcome to episode 52 of Fergo and the Freak. I'm that bloke from Rugby League Project, Andrew Ferguson. You can find me on Twitter at AndrewRLP. Joining me as always is League Freak, who you can find on Twitter at League Freak. How you doing there, mate?
I'm doing pretty well. It's a late night podcast, so this is going to be fun.
Yeah, you're either going to fall asleep halfway through or you're just going to go off your nut and not remember in the morning.
Yeah, I'll wake up and I'll probably have messages saying, "Do you realize what you said?" and things like that, and I'll be like, "Oh, it wasn't that bad, was it?" And then
Podcasters regret.
Yeah, podcaster regret. Well, we haven't had one yet, have we? I don't think we have.
Well, I suppose the tail end of the last episode was a bit. How you going?
I stand by the fact I would still eat domestic cat. Let's continue.
Continue before we go down that rabbit hole a bit further. Today we decided we're going to have a look at the youth of the game. And we're going to have a look at the young stars of today, all the players who are aged under the age of 24, and who would make a best of 17, I guess, out of those players. And then we're going to compare them to a side from the past, which will be a little cherry on the top of the end, and we'll have a little chat and see who we think would come out on top.
Yeah, and this was really interesting because once we started this process, we couldn't believe the players that were ending up in this team that we put together, because there is so much talent and so many stars and legitimate out and out stars of the game.
That's exactly right. And one thing we noticed too, after looking at the historical team that we're going to bring up later, is we don't know which of the players that we've omitted from this team are going to go on to become outright superstars in their own right as well.
Yeah, that was crazy to think about, that there's players that we're not even thinking of right now who they're going to be like legends of the game, which is so cool to think about. And to know that rugby league's always had that ability there's always somebody ready to come along and just kill it. It's fantastic. It's one of the great things about rugby league, in that whenever you see a young bloke debut in first grade, he might be your club's next legend, and that's always really exciting.
Yeah, that's a great thing. You never know when they're coming along. So, without any further ado, let's hook into the 2019 side. And at fullback, we've settled on Kalen Ponga.
Yeah, it's hard to go past him at fullback. I mean, especially this year, he's been fantastic for Newcastle, and he's really playing that role of being a playmaker from the back as well, which is, I mean, it's something that normally fullbacks take a few more years to do, and he's doing it already at the age of 21. It's kind of extraordinary.
It's amazing how composed he is. So relaxed. Everything's he just takes it all in his stride. That's the thing that gets me the most about him. And, being in that Newcastle side, having all that responsibility, all that pressure, especially from the media, given that he signed that massive deal after playing a handful of games.
Yeah.
He's proven to Newcastle that he deserved that money, and probably more.
Yeah, I mean, right now he's a bargain for the Knights. And man, he's gonna be so wealthy when he gets his next deal. He's gonna get so much money.
He's phenomenal. And he's played 41 club games already and 3 Origins.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd have to say he can't be far off a test call up soon.
Yeah, I mean, you even if you just chucked him in on the wing and just got him out there to play footy, you could even have him off the bench as well. I mean, he did that for Queensland and played really well. So, yeah, you'd want him in the side as soon as possible, I would say.
Absolutely. On the wing, we've got Suliasi Vunivalu.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful. Fijian. We like a big, powerful Fijian.
All the wingers should be Fijian. I think it should be the second law of the game. Like it should say in the rule book, the game will be played by 13 players and all of the wingers will be Fijian. And he's fantastic. His try scoring record is he's on track to be one of the top 5 try scorers of all time, which is absolutely unbelievable. That's he's a statistical outlier in that sense. A big dude. He's only going to get better as well. I don't think he's filled out physically yet. I think that he's still got some growing to do, hey?
Yeah, he is big. The thing I like about him, he's big and angry. You don't get too
Yeah,
many of those wingers from Fiji who are big and angry.
yeah. The thing I love about Fijian wingers is that, like, instead of running for the gap, they run at the player. It's
Mm.
fantastic. It's great.
But they'll run over you and monster you, and then they'll walk back
Yeah.
smiling and they'll apologise and they're all friendly. But not Vunivalu. He'll walk past and he'll snarl at you. I
It's
like that about him.
it's the Storm, man. They can find a player, can't they?
Oh, of course they can, absolutely. Now, in the centres, we've got Latrell Mitchell.
Hmm.
He's played 86 club games, 4 Origins, and already got 2 Tests under his belt.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
amazing. And his goal kicking record, it means he's got a lot of points already as well, and got a lot of tries as well. He's going to end up if he just has average point scoring seasons from now on, he's going to be up there with the top point scorers in the game's history just because he started, at such a young age.
yeah, well, I mean, he's got 58 tries from 87 games, and currently sitting on 583 career points just in club level.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. It's weird when you see him kicking the goals, hey, because you realise like what an asset he is to a team that he can break a game open, but then he can go on and kick the goals as well. It's fantastic for the Roosters.
Oh, yeah, he's phenomenal. The other centre is Bronson Cherry, 18 years old. He's only played 13 games.
Yeah, and a pure game breaker. Like he reminds me a little bit of a younger Michael Jennings in that it doesn't matter what the situation is. If he gets the ball in his hands, he might score a try from anywhere on the field, flat-footed. It doesn't really matter, And there's not too many players like that, and he's exactly what the Sharks needed.
He got that explosive pace off the start. Man.
Yeah, yeah, he's gone, and that's it. It's all over. Really fantastic, like find for the Sharkies. You'd think that he's going to end up being in Blues calculation pretty soon as well. Like he hasn't played that many first grade games, but once he gets little bits of his game sorted out, like gets the defensive reads and all that sorted out, he'll end up playing for New South Wales.
Undoubtedly. Now, on the other wing, we've got Manly fullback Tom Trbojevic, who's only 22. Already played 82 club games, 5 Origins and 4 Tests.
Yeah, and plays like a 30-year-old, like so composed. The weird thing about him is that, and it's something that a lot of backs can't do, he can take like 4 weeks out of the game through injury or something, and then come back in and just hit the ground running like he's in top form. It's really kind of weird that he can do that.
And just an absolutely powerful, dynamic ball runner for a bloke who looks fairly slight as well.
Yeah, he really does. He's very different build from his brother Jake. And yeah, he sort of looks like somebody that should be getting monstered in the NRL, but it's the complete opposite. Like he overpowers so many players. It's very strange to see him. He must be just so naturally physically strong.
Yeah, got that really unique running style. But the other good thing about him is he can play it on the wing, and yeah. I mean, as we saw in Origin, he's capable at centre as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best, I think, fullbacks, centres, and wingers. Like he just is one of those super reliable players that they come along every so often. Like the Morris brothers, I always felt were like that. You could pick them in pretty much any rep team, and you always knew that you were going to get a top class performance out of them. And he feels like one of those sorts of players to me.
Absolutely. Now, 5'8", we've got Brodie Croft from the Storm. He's played 33 club games. He's sort of a little bit of a late bloomer, I guess, but geez, he's come along in leaps and bounds this year.
Yeah, and the thing about him is his game is so steady, and it's the typical sort of Melbourne Storm thing of like he's been given a job to do, and he's just doing it, and he's doing it really well for the top club in the NRL. We're playing him he's a halfback for the Storm. We've got him at 5'8". But yeah, he's fantastic. I love watching him play, and when he runs the ball, he hasn't ran the ball too much in his career. When he starts running the ball, I think that's when he's going to take his game to another level. Because every so often he will run it, and he's really dangerous. And if he learns when to pick his spots, can you imagine him and Munster both as ball running, halves? It's horror show. How do you stop them?
That's the thing. You'd end up needing 4 defenders on those 2 players, and then you just think of all the unmarked players outside them.
Yeah, incredible.
They've got the ball skills to, capitalise on those shortages as well in the defensive line. It's an absolute freakish combination to think about.
Yeah, and I feel like with Croft too, he seems like he's going to be like with all of these great players that leave the Storm. It feels like that Croft is going to be the next player in line that is going to sort of lead for the dynasty with him and Munster. Sort of thing. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if in 10 years' time, Croft is still partnered up with Munster at the Storm.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, halfback, we've got, to me, this is a no-brainer. Nathan Cleary, 71 club games, 5 origins. It can't be long before he's in line for a test call-up.
Yeah, and amazing goal kicker as well. Had a bit of a form slump earlier in the year, but once comes back for the Panthers, and it's just playing great again. His defense is absolutely unbelievable for a young halfback. Like he might be. It's like him and Johns as the best young defensive halfbacks I've ever seen. And just people bag him a lot. I am so glad that the Panthers have him locked up.
Yeah, look, he's not one of those players who I think of as being a flashy 7.
No.
But at the same time, he's getting better at being consistently solid.
Yeah.
But yeah, his defense is... The thing that gets me about his defense is the technique's good, but the reading of the defense is the one thing that's really good, because it's not just knowing where to be at the right time, but it's also knowing when to call the defense across to help out on one side or not. He's really good defensive reader.
Yeah, and the other thing is too, like as a 21-year-old halfback, he never gets overpowered. Like you never see him like thrown to the side in a tackle or anything like that. He's always right there in the contest, and you just don't see that very often at all. And it's consistent. It's who he is as a player. And yeah, as I said, I'm so happy that he's a Panthers player and that they've locked him up for a long time, because he's just a fantastic player. And as he learns the game, I mean, he's years away from being at his peak. It's kind of crazy to think how good he could end up being.
Yeah, I mean, if Matthew Johns is to believe, he's 9 years away from his peak.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, jeez.
That's a long way to go. Someone who's further away from their peak is Payne Haas. He's only 19. 19.
It's crazy. And he's a giant.
Yeah, he's only played 15 NRL games and already been in Origin.
Yeah, and I would have him in my test side just for the size of him. He's absolutely massive. He's a fantastic athlete. He can play a lot of minutes. His go forward is absolutely incredible. He overpowers forwards at 19. Like he overpowers entire defensive packs at 19 years old. It's kind of incredible. And if he continues to improve, he could, this is a big call, he'll be getting close towards that Taumalolo level where he's just racking up these giant meters and just teams can't stop him. It's weird.
I was going to ask you, do you think Taumalolo at 19 was better than Haas right now?
No, I don't think so.
No. That's the scary thing for me.
Yeah.
Because I agree. I think Haas is leaps and bounds ahead of Taumalolo at the same age.
Yeah. And I mean, you and me, and we'll talk, we want to do a whole podcast on Taumalolo. Like, we can't hold him in any higher stead. Like, we think he is just the best. And so for us to both say that, I mean, it's scary. He could be anything. He might be the best forward in the game for the next 15 years if he improves, Yeah.
I mean, all he's got to work on really is his minutes, and his minutes aren't bad now.
Mm.
But if he can get them up, if he can start playing an extra 10 or 15 minutes every week, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and like his strength right now is so good for a 19-year-old. Like when he's 28, it's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah. He's phenomenal. Another player we both rate highly at hooker, Brandon Smith.
I love watching him play.
So good is this kid. He's a genuine hooker. That he's the first choice hooker for the New Zealand Test side now. Yet he plays at lock for his club team.
And he's probably undersized for a lock, but the way that he plays the game, like he smashes everyone in defence. And when he runs the ball, you can just see he's a problem. Every single time he runs the ball, he's a problem because he's just so powerful.
This is right, and he's such a dogged fighter as well. Like he fights for every meter. He fights in every tackle. That's just something you can't train in a player.
No, and like when Smith does eventually retire, he's just going to slot right in there at hooker, and it's incredible the way they use him because a lot of teams they could have messed it up. The Storm obviously haven't, and they get so much out of him right now playing out of position. But he's just such a quality player. I mean, you can do that with someone like him.
Yeah, I mean, essentially in my view, anyway, what they're doing is they've got him at lock purely to work on his defence because he's defending in the middle still.
Yeah.
Let's just get him all used to that structure, be in the right place. He'll get used to doing the workload in defence. And he's learning, and obviously, ball running as well.
Yeah, so, and it's incredible to me. Like, he reminds me a little bit of someone like a Lincoln Withers in that he just hits so much bigger than he is. Yeah. Like, he hits like a truck. It's crazy.
Yeah. Pound for pound, he is one of the biggest hitters in the game, no doubt.
Yeah, definitely.
He's at prop, we've got his Melbourne Storm teammate, Nelson Asafa-Solomona. He's played 93 club games. He's 23 years old and 6 tests already.
That's crazy, hey?
He's just another giant human.
Yeah, and it's like the Melbourne Storm are just able to produce these players that straight out of the box, they're just first grade players. They know their role. They get their job done. Like, and he does it without any fanfare. There's not like everyone going, oh, look at this kid. He just gets the job done every single week, and like so much experience already. That's incredible that he's played that many first grade games.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you think about it, he's going to get to 100 this year.
Yeah, and he'll be 23.
23 with 100, so he could be close to having 200 games on his belt at the age of 27.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he could have 300 at 30, 31. That total of 400. Yeah, and that 400 by Cameron Smith is well under threat just with this kid alone.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think how, with the way that they're looking after players now and knowing how much training they should do, how not to overtrain players to get the best out of them, to get the most games out of them. That 400 game barrier is going to be broken by a lot of players that we're seeing right now in this list even.
Yeah. Next in second row, we've got David Fifita, another 19-year-old. He's played 26 games for the Broncos and 3 Origins already.
Yeah, and another one that when you look at him, it's crazy to think that he's a teenager. Yeah. It's so crazy, and he's so good. Like you can see that he hasn't got that consistency yet in his game, but you wouldn't expect that from someone that's 19. And when he does get one of those games where he just comes out and he just hits the ground running, like he's almost unstoppable.
Yeah, he's boy, and to think he's still working on parts of his game, and he's already playing Origin. Just think how much more skilled and talented this kid's going to get. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, when he starts working on things like his work rate and defense and things like that, like right now, just straight away, he's already one of the best, hard running second rowers in the game.
Yeah,
it's incredible. 19.
19. It baffles me how kids can be this big at 19.
Yeah, I know I wasn't. I still am not.
um, Pairing with him in the second row is his teammates at the Broncos, Tavita Pangai Jr. God, that kid's just a ball of muscle.
Yeah, and like the weird thing is, of all of these players, he might have the ability to be the best all-round forward that we're going to have here, which is kind of crazy to think about. Like he could have the work rate and just like the footwork, and he's so, like, I rate him so highly. I've like love watching him play. He's had a few games this year where he hasn't played his best, but I think you've got to expect that from a young forward. Like you've got to let them have those games because like they're not anywhere near at 23 years of age. He's not anywhere near his peak. He's still learning how to be a forward. He's still learning what you got to do to get up every week for a game.
That's right. I mean, he had one game early this year where he just dominated. I think it was the week before they played the Cowboys because everyone was expecting this huge clash between him and Tomalolo.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pangai didn't get up for that one, unfortunately, and Tomalolo just showed him how it was done. But yeah, if he can pull out those massive performances like that week in, week out, he'll be at Tomalolo levels.
Yeah, and like, as you say, completely unstoppable. Like it doesn't matter what you do, he's going to do whatever he wants to do, and that's incredible. And and the next one, there's another Bronco.
Lock Joe Ofahengawi, 23 years old. He's played 83 games already, 2 State of Origin games and 5 internationals.
Yeah, and would have played 3 State of Origin games if not for that terrible cut in his leg that he suffered. Yeah. The thing about him that gets me is he plays like a much more mature forward. Like he seems to know when to settle the play and just get some go forward going, and he never loses his head or anything like that. He's just such a steady player.
Yeah, and I think the Broncos have made the right decision to hang on to him and let Maguire go, because I find that Ofahengawi is proving to be much better than Maguire right now. Maguire's just got too much of that niggly crap in his game today. I think Gowie just doesn't have any of that. He just sits there. And the other thing about him is he's a hard worker. He just does all that toil.
Yeah. And it's really strange to see somebody that young who, he's one of their settlers in that Broncos pack. He was one of the settling forwards in the Queensland team, which was kind of crazy. And they really missed him in that game that he missed in game 2. Fantastic player. And for the Broncos to have all of those forwards, like those 3 forwards who, like in 10 years' time, they're still going to be a pretty young age, they're still going to be early 30s. Yeah. Fantastic. They're so lucky. I really hope they keep them all together, hey?
Yeah, they've got an unbelievable forward pack there. We've named 4 of them just in that pack there, along with Payne Haas. My goodness. There's no problem with that Broncos forward pack for the next decade, at least, if they can keep them all together.
Yeah.
That's a dominant pack. Doesn't matter who the other 2 players are.
They could be an all-time dominant pack.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and even right now, you take them right now, they'd be one of the best packs in the comp.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. On the bench, your favourite player at the moment, Victor Radley.
Yeah, he's I love the way he plays. He plays above his weight. He's another one. He's like Brandon Smith. Like he smashes people, and he's a bit taller than Brandon Smith, but that's not too difficult. But yeah, they're very similar players in a lot of ways, hey?
They are, very much so, because Radley's also played plenty of time at lock as well this year. It's almost like those 2 are sort of progressing at the same time with their skill sets, the way they're developing. There's so much similarity between the 2. I'd probably say that Radley looks to have a little bit more ball skill on him, but Brandon Smith looks to be a little bit of a better ball runner.
Yeah,
so it's going to be interesting to see how the 2 go about their careers, I guess, as their careers go on, and they're set to have just a ton of great clashes for the next decade.
Yeah, and the other thing is too, I think Brandon Smith, his future is at hooker, whereas somebody like Radley, I feel as though he might be heading towards the hooker role, and he probably will now that the Roosters hooker he's got a bit of an arm injury again,
Yeah.
Jake Friend, so he probably is going to end up back at hooker, but it's hard to know whether he will be a full-time hooker going forward or if he will be almost take that lock position where almost like a roving lock. It's a funny position that he plays because he can do so much. He's so versatile.
That's exactly right. He's going to be an absolutely vital part of that Roosters pack over the next few years as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Next on the bench, we've got Cameron Murray from South. I think he played his 50th game this weekend, actually, in the NRL. And
yeah, what a game.
Yeah, and three matches in the State of Origin this year as well. So he's already started his rep period, and he's 21.
Yeah, it's funny because they were worried about losing Crichton, and then this kid comes along, and all of a sudden it's like South fans don't care about it. Fantastic player, just exactly what you want out of a modern day second rower. I mean, just the work rate, the athleticism, the footwork. He's got a massive future ahead of him, and the season he's having alone this year, it's unbelievable. It's like it'd be a lot of players' career year he's having right now, and he's only 21.
Exactly. And the thing I liked about him too was during Origin, when New South Wales got beaten that first game, and there was a whole heap of changes, he was one who they didn't get rid of because he still did his job. He was unfazed by the moment, which was impressive. I mean, Kalen Pong is the only one I've seen that was that unfazed about it all. And he just went out and did his job and did it well, and kept his spot in the side for all three games.
He's going to be a New South Wales forward for years to come with an attitude like that too.
Yeah, he's just mentally he's got the right package already.
Yeah, and it's you love it when you see a young player come into the game and their head is in the right place above everything else, because you've got to learn the game, you've got to learn what works, learn how to prepare yourself and all that sort of thing. But when you can do it from that sort of mindset of you're not fazed by huge stages, it makes it so much easier. There's to reach the top of your game, there's such a lower level that you've got to get to. You're almost there anyway.
Exactly. Excuse me for that burp just happened. Adding a bit of class to the show.
Yeah.
Next on the bench, we've got 20-year-old Sharks half, Kyle Flanagan. He's only played 8 games so far, but the ones he's played this year, I think he's played 5 this year, the Sharks have looked better with him on the field than they have with experienced test half Sean Johnson, who should be essentially in the prime of his career.
Yeah, and I mean, you and me have said they really should drop Johnson for him. They shouldn't be waiting for a turnaround or anything in Johnson's form, because the way Flanagan straight away come out of the box and it was just a first grade, half performance. Was attacking the line, was running the ball, which is huge. There's things that a lot of young halves don't do or they're hesitant to do, and he wasn't worried about it. He just looked like a first grader straight away. It was really kind of strange to see.
Yeah, he's got that. He's got the enthusiasm that his old man had as a player. I mean, and this is saying something because not too many people saw his old man Shane play much games. He didn't play too many, but he was a really energetic hooker. And you just see Flanagan's always sort of popping up. He's sort of always backing up. He's always hanging around. He's always looking for the ball. You like to see that from a young guy. You don't want to see him being tentative or a bit worried or worried about their overplaying the hand or anything like that. You want to see them confident playing that way.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think the Sharks should just commit to him. Just say, look, we're going to have to do something about Sean Johnson. We know that it could be an issue, but this kid could be running our team around this field for like the next 15 years, and we got to go with him from right now, because right now he's their best choice at 5'8". And there's not any question about it.
And that's a good thing about him. He can play 5'8" and halfback.
Yeah. And Townsend really worked well with him too. That was the other thing.
Yeah, they look a lot better, which is odd because Townsend's played more footy, I'd imagine, with Sean Johnson, given he spent 2 or 3 years with the Warriors over there.
Yeah,
but he just looks to have clicked better with Flanagan.
Yeah, it's funny. Better. It's funny how different situations there's, on paper it should have worked with Johnson, and it just hasn't. It's weird.
The last player on the bench we've got here is Tamere Martin. 23 years old. He's played 55 club games and 4 internationals as well already.
Yeah, and he's one of those players, and I said this to you earlier, he feels to me like he should be about 26 years old. I mean, he's had so much experience. He's played at a number of clubs now. The other thing is, too, like, I don't think any of the clubs really wanted to lose him. I think that all of them kind of would have loved to have held on to him, but just knew they couldn't. And the only thing that is a worry is he had that brain bleed earlier in the year. And you have to see how he comes back from that. But he's a fantastic player. He's very versatile. He can play 5'8". He's playing at fullback for the Cowboys, and just so skillful. And he's got that ability to break a game open as well. And if he can just get some consistency in his game, he's going to move up towards those elite fullbacks.
Absolutely. I just like the fact that he was so composed in the post-Thurston period, because he'd spent most of his time at the Cowboys before that partnering Thurston in the halves, and then it was filling in at fullback and sort of moving around a bit. And he's never really had an opportunity to nail down a spot.
Yeah.
And even despite that, he still looked right at home playing in the NRL. And I just think if he gets one full season injury-free, where he just gets told, right, this is your position, you're staying there all year, I think that will be the biggest thing that will help his career in a long way.
Yeah, definitely. Because, I mean, we've seen him. He can put in man-of-the-match performances. And to be able to say he can do that, and he's already 20, he's only 23, that's outstanding. And I wonder where they will bring him back when they do for the Cowboys, whether they will bring him back in the halves or, I think that they like young Daylight at fullback at the moment. But, I drink water, Daylight, drink water. Yeah, I knew it was one of those, long names. I feel like Tamere Martin, I'd rather have him at fullback, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't know. See, I like Drinkwater at fullback because he's quite nippy as well. I just don't know what they do in the halves because I think they got, is it Jake Connor there as well? Yeah, and he's been playing really well.
And Morgan, I mean, obviously he's your halfback. Once again, it's embarrassment of riches. Imagine if he had to move clubs again, eh? He might come back to Penrith if Maloney leaves.
Well, there you go. So that's our under-24 side for 2019. They've got an average age of 21.4. They've played 888 NRL games, 26 Origin games, and 39 tests/internationals.
And the crazy thing about that, so much experience already.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many players there that are already seasoned professionals.
Exactly. It's crazy. Let's see, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players in that squad who have played at least 70 NRL games.
That's crazy for such young players. Like, it just shows you, like when you're ready, you're ready. And it's all of the age stuff, it goes out the window because you look at someone like Ponga. He's just ready. He was ready for Origin. Yeah. Brandon Smith, ready for Test footy.
I think some of these guys have come in and they've been ready for Origin footy straight away. I mean, we saw it with Payne Haas this year.
Yeah.
14 games, bang, put him in Origin, he's fine.
Yeah, not a problem at all. And he's still a teenager. Oh,
It's crazy.
man. It really is.
So what we're going to do is compare him with the team from 30 years ago to see how the juniors back then stack up with the juniors today. Now, obviously, we have the benefit of hindsight for this one, but we've tried to base it on who'd played the most, more games, I guess, at that age to sort out career-wise. So there was a few players that missed out, say Steve Renoff, because he'd only played a handful of first-grade games. Billy Moore was another one who missed out. And Kevin Walters only just. He played plenty of first-grade games, but he hadn't nailed down a 5'8" spot at that time. He was still sort of playing as a fullback at Canberra.
And so we really tried to look at this as though it was 1990 because, and when we first started, we were like, oh, Renoff, yeah, put it straight in. But then we realised that he really had he just started his first-grade career. And it just, if it was 1990, you wouldn't have put him in the side ahead of who we've selected. So, yeah, go through it. Let's do it.
All right, so this is the under-24s team from 1989. At fullback, we got Tim Brasher, who was 18, and he played 20 first-grade games at this stage.
Yeah, and hard to deny him at fullback, wasn't it?
He just sort of hit the ground running from the get-go, and he played at centre initially. Scrawny thing for a centre, but he was partnering up with Andy Courier, so he didn't have too much to compete against when it comes to size.
And the thing is with Brasher is that he was once again one of those players. You pick him, and you're going to get you're just not going to have to worry at all. And I love that about Tim Brasher. That's what I loved about him for New South Wales. You just pick him, and you're right. You don't have to worry about Brasher. And he was like that through his entire career. Yeah,
reliable as hell. I mean, for those who don't know, he was my favourite player as a kid. Just love watching him play. He just had this nous as a fullback to be exactly where he needed to be when fielding kicks. Great defender close to the line, which is something he undoubtedly learnt from Gary Jack, one of the best defensive fullbacks there ever was. And became a magnificent support player, which was somewhat rarish for fullbacks around that period as well. So, played everywhere in the back line. I think he might have even played a game at 7, I don't know, but he played at 5'8". He played on the wing at centre, at fullback. Just a magnificent talent.
I would love to see what he was doing at the time in terms of running meters compared to other fullbacks, because I feel as though he was always one of those fullbacks that just chewed up the yardage. Like he would take them, as you say, get them kicks on the full, and he would make so many more meters than other fullbacks before the defence got to him. And he always ran it like 100% back. Like he never jogged it back. He never he never was slow about it. He was urgent with every single run back, and I used to love that about him.
Yeah, I think if we was to compare him with someone in more recent times, when it comes to kick returns, I think someone like either Carmichael Hunt or Valentine Holmes.
Yeah.
But, they're not huge players, but every kick return was at full pace.
Yeah, definitely. And he did that at every level.
Yeah. This is a time when there was a lot of great talent at fullback too, hanging around Australia at the time. So did well. On the wing, English-born Martin Offier, or Afire. He was 22. He'd already played, at least 80 games by then and 10 tests. Possibly regarded as one of the fastest wingers England's produced.
It's just I don't think younger people these days would understand the hand grenade that went off in rugby league when Offie hit the scene. Hey, like it was just, it's hard to even explain the extra level he was on in terms of pace, in terms of athleticism and vision to just find space in the defence and chew up the yards.
Yeah, he was one of those genuine superstars. Like, you had a lot of players who were stars. He was next level. He was, a media darling as well. Had all the charm, all the charisma, a bit of the bravado, and he could back it all up.
Yeah,
Uh,
and like I know that Wendell Sailor looked up to him a lot, and it's funny. A lot of the things that you see Wendell Sailor doing, he got that from Chariots.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think that it's something that you said then. He was like a proper superstar, like in the media. He might be one of the highest profile rugby league players in history.
and which is phenomenal for bloke who was playing on the wing.
Yeah, yeah. And his
Just
try scoring record is like it's like a PlayStation game. It's
yeah.
it's ridiculous.
Well, for those who don't know, there was a game he played in, I think in 1991. He scored 10 tries in one game.
Yeah.
Um,
10.
this bloke he was next level.
Yeah. And like even now, like as an Australian player, people know what I'm like with the English players. Martin Offia was a superstar. He was just unbelievable. And like when you talk about all-time wingers, you got to talk about him, which is saying something.
No, absolutely. I fully agree.
Just
Um,
crazy, crazy good player.
next is another great winger who is also a fullback, but probably best known for his time at centre, and that's Andrew Eddinghausen. And
Yeah,
he was 23 in '89, but by then he'd already played 134 games just in Sydney. He'd had a few stints over in England as well. He'd played 8 Origins and 3 Tests.
yeah, and just a staple, already at that age. And it's funny because he was thought of early on in his career as like a try scorer and that, and by the end of it, he was very much a defensive specialist. Fantastic play, my first favourite player ever, and yeah,
Likewise,
yeah, really, I didn't know that.
he's
Um,
well. I think I might have mentioned it in the episode where we did my book launch.
mhm.
But he was the player who got me into rugby league because of his first name.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I
Uh,
remember that now. Yeah, he's yeah, he was fantastic. Look, the first team I supported was the Sharks, and it was because of ET. And I only ever wanted to play wing growing up because of ET. Um, I just thought he was the best. I thought he was fantastic, and had such a really good long career. Like I think these days, if ET had to come around these days with all of the advancements in like treating players and looking after them and stuff, he would have probably played 450 games.
he could have done. I mean, I think he came into first grade at 17.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, just phenomenal player.
and belonged as a
Yeah,
17-year-old.
that's the thing. He developed. He managed to change his game as he got older. So he became a much smarter and better defender as well as he got older.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, yeah, fantastic player. Um, the other centre was Brad Fittler, who was only 17. God, this kid, he pretty much did everything a player could possibly do before he even turned 20. He played for Australia, he played his Origin, and won an
Yeah.
Ashes series, won a State of Origin series, won a grand final. He could have retired at the age of 20 and said, "I've done everything. I don't need to play anymore."
Yeah,
But oh,
and that step was like a bomb going off. When he put
yeah,
that on, you were gone.
yeah, it was Benji Marshall 2004.
Yeah,
That's what it was. Because that step, I know I've mentioned it before and I'll say it again. He's the only player I've seen who could put on a step that big and actually use it to propel him to go faster. And that's
yeah,
what made him hard. Is the step was bad enough for a defender, but the fact that he used it to go faster off it means that even if you saw it coming, by the time you turn around to tackle him, it was already too late.
yeah. And something else that people don't talk about too much with Fittler, he's a big dude.
Yeah,
Like he's not a small player. Like he legitimately played lock for years, and it wasn't a problem. Like just a big dude, and someone that big putting a step on and having that sort of footwork, and then you'd add in like his ball playing skills, and then you add in his kicking skills, and then you add in his leadership ability, and then you add in like by the time he was like 25, he had all of the experience in the world. He'd done everything you just said.
Yeah,
He did everything when he was a teenager.
yeah, it's just phenomenal athlete and deserves to be in talk for an immortal.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Um, I wonder when it will start to happen. I guess it'll probably start to happen when his state of origin coaching career is finished. And I wouldn't be shocked if he sort of ended up coaching Australia for a lot of years as well.
Especially if Mal decides to coach the Titans.
Yeah, which I hope that Mal doesn't do that, hey? He deserves better than that. But yeah, just a phenomenal player. Obviously, being a Panthers boy, special place in my heart. And yeah, I love Brad Fittler.
Yeah, he's a brilliant player. On the wing, Michael Hancock. He was only 19. He'd played 39 games for the Broncos at this stage, but had already played 3 Origins and 3 Tests.
Yeah, crazy to think about, eh?
Yeah, and the first of those wingers they weren't picked for their speed, though. He was picked for his power.
Mm.
And
the fight that he'd show in tackles too, like I can't remember a winger ever having that before him. I'm sure there were some. I mean, I guess you think of Eric Growth in a similar, it was about the power. You know what I mean?
That's right. Growth had just had that mad bump, and you just couldn't get near him. Hancock did have a good step. He did have good speed, but as he got older and he lost a bit of that, his power game got even better, and he just got so hard to tackle.
Yeah, just rotten to tackle, eh? That was the thing about him, and it's some of the other players that we've thought about, and then you looked at what Hancock had already achieved, and it was just undeniable. You had to pick him with 1990 glasses on. And he had such a good long career. It's interesting. I wonder how many younger fans now would remember Michael Hancock or know about him too much because, in the 90s, he was, as a New South Wales fan, he was a bastard. You know what I mean? Like, it was horrible for us to play against. He really was.
Especially when we got in that period where the 10-metre rule came in the following year in 1990. And refs started to crack down on the ruck a bit in the later 90s. He's thrashing around on the ground trying to get a quick play of the ball, got so many penalties for his side.
Yeah.
But, I mean, obviously there's more to his game than that, but it was just a sign of his urgency and how hard he was just to contain constantly.
Yeah, just the fight in every single tackle. Kind of like we talked about Brandon Smith earlier. Every single tackle that you went in with Michael Hancock, there was never an easy one to drag him down.
No, and even when you had dragged him down, the fight still wasn't over because then you had to try and keep him still as you were trying to make sure your defenders got back on side for the next play.
Yeah, it's hard enough just to get off him.
Yeah. Now at 5'8", we had the 19-year-old Laurie Daly. He'd played 46 games for the Raiders and 2 Origins at that stage.
Yeah, like a young Laurie Daly, man, the world at his feet. He'd so much success already, as a youngster and had so much success ahead of him. It's interesting because he played a lot of like centre and stuff like that as well, which I think people forget.
Yeah.
But obviously like that 5'8" and like at his best, I mean, it was really him and Fittler. It's hard to separate them. Fittler probably you would take overall for his career just because he had less injuries and things like that. But yeah, I mean, Laurie Daly, just fantastic. And even back then, like one of the top players in the game then.
Yeah, he was one of those blokes, kind of like Wally Lewis, who could just control a game and could turn it whenever he wanted, and had a good step on him as well. Good controlling kicking game for a 5'8", good running game, brilliant passing game.
Yeah.
Oh God, I can wax lyrical about Laurie Daly all day, and I hate the fact that I can because, he was in that Raiders side that won that grand final in '89.
Yeah.
Oh, man, phenomenal player.
He really is. Like, and just a complete command of the game. Like when the big games come around, Laurie Daly was one of those players that was always leading.
Yeah, and he was. You hear a lot of players now get called a complete footballer, and he's just a genuine footballer. That's what Laurie Daly was.
Yeah,
that's not what Clint Gutherson is.
No.
Right. At halfback, we're going to shock everyone again because we've got another Pommy here. It's Sean Edwards. Now, This is fascinating because he was 22, and by this stage, he's played over 200 first-grade games across England and Australia, and he's played 15 tests. He's 22.
He'd had a career.
Yeah.
He'd already had, if he retired, you'd say, wow, he achieved a lot in his career.
He came to Balmain in '89 and was part of their team that made it to the grand final.
Mm-hmm.
One of England and Great Britain's best ever sevens.
Yeah, and I think he might be the highest achiever in terms of winners' medals ever over there. I'm pretty sure that's the case. And it's just undeniable. When you look at all the other players that we had to choose from, we had like Langer, Stewart, players like that. When you look at their resumes in 1990 compared to Edwards, and they'd done some great things, man. It wasn't even close. It wasn't even close.
He blitzed a lot. And this is at a time when England were still seen as the premier competition in the world, that mid to late 80s. Club competition-wise. Phenomenal player. Magnificent grasp of the game and great reader of play and had a phenomenal kicking game.
Yeah, it's sad that Great Britain doesn't produce players like that anymore, really.
Yeah, it's... I can speak highly about Sean Edwards all day long. At prop, we've got Glenn Lazarus, 23 years old. He'd only played 50 club games by then and one Origin game, but his career really kicked off at the tail end of '89, going into 1990. And then he just became a staple in the Origin and Test sides for nearly a decade afterwards.
Yeah, and basically set the groundwork for the modern day forward, really, the modern day front rower. I consider him to be one of, if not the best front rower of all time. A big dude, big motor, very mobile for somebody his size as well. And there's, he went on to be a premiership winner at 3 different clubs, which I don't think had ever been done before from memory. Fantastic player, and there's a reason he was a foundation of so many premiership winning teams.
Yeah, because of his frame, just like the other prop in this side, which we'll get to soon, had such a wide set of shoulders on him, made it hard to wrap the ball up on him. Yeah. So his offload was a killer. And when you had that Canberra side he was a part of, and later on that Broncos side, with so many great support players in there, he just became a massive part, massive focal point of their attack.
Yeah, and just a foundation block of everything. Like it was, and even when you look at like New South Wales and Australia, he really was phenomenal. And as I said, just one of the best forwards of all time. And it's incredible to think, how much talent we've already talked about in this team. It's crazy.
Yeah. We're just getting into the forwards. Okay, at hooker, Kerrod Walters, only 21. Played 28 games for the Broncos. I think he played probably around 20 or 30 odd games in the Brisbane comp as well before that. 3 Origins and 3 tests at this stage.
Yeah, I think the funny thing about Kerrod Walters is that early on, like if you had have looked at all of the brothers at about, like, say, 1992, 93, and we're back in 89 at this stage, you would have said he was going to be the most successful of all of them. Like, he was just so good. He played at so much rep footy, and it was really, he was the one that was really the trailblazer for all of the Walters family. Really fantastic player. Probably should have done a lot more in his career. I don't know why he didn't end up doing more in his career. I'm not really sure if something happened to him or what. or his focus just changed or something. But yeah, just a great player.
He ended up having to compete for Test honours with a resurgent Benny Elias, and then the emergence of Steve Walters, because Steve kicked on after that Raiders premiership win in '89, and just became the best hooker in the '90s by far.
Yeah, and what are the odds of that? And we've talked about this, that the best hookers in the game, it's almost like complete eras of the sport. They sort of dominate for 10 years or so. And what are the odds that your brother is the one that just overtakes you?
Yeah, that must have almost been you'd have been torn on that. You'd have been both happy and pissed off at the same time.
Yeah.
Now the other prop is another English player. Shows you just how strong the English comp was. And it's Kelvin Skerritt. And a lot of people in Australia, especially those listening to this, may not know who he was. I urge you to go into Google Pictures and find a picture of him, because you'll see just how wide his shoulders were. This bloke was a wrecking ball.
Yeah, see, I don't know much about him myself. Hey?
Oh, big, wide man. He wasn't big fat. He was like Lazarus, just wide.
Yeah, just a big
frame.
Human being.
Always took 2 to 3 defenders to get him down. And because he was playing a lot of his career, especially early on, in that 5 metre rule period there, usually the prop forwards, their job was to try and just attract 2 defenders, really. That was their job. Yeah. But he was so wide and such a hard runner that he always got 3 in there, and he still had the ability to get a ball away, which meant he was just, like Lazarus, just creating opportunities everywhere just with his offload alone, because he'd get the defenders in, get the ball away. Everyone else can make hay with what's left over. So by then, he'd probably played at least 130-odd games. He'd already played 3 tests as well.
Wow, those English competitions, man, they were chewing out games, weren't they?
Yeah, they had about 70 games a year. Now, in the second row, we've got Paul Harrigan, who was only 20, and it was his first season. He played 14 games for the Knights that year. But he actually had a little bit of a growth spurt, I think, around that time, because he got quite a bit bigger pretty quick and ended up becoming a prop, and a damn bloody good one.
I'd love to know if back in his early season, if he had the shoulder pads back then. I feel like he would have.
Guaranteed.
And it was funny because the Knights come into the comp in '88, and it took them a couple of years, but then they just grew this. It was like a pack that just grew at the same time. And when you look back at them, and most of them were still around when they won the premiership in '97. They all just sort of grew up together. And I always remember in the early '90s and mid '90s that Newcastle was never an easy team to play because of their forwards. It wasn't a bit with the Knights. It wasn't about like, they play this expansive game or anything. It wasn't about that. It was about their forwards. They kept you honest. If you didn't turn up, the Knights would beat you just because of those blokes. And Harrigan was obviously part of that. And, he probably was the most successful of the lot of them by the end of his career. But, he was straight into New South Wales and eventually went on to the Australian team. Fantastic player, big dude. Once again, very mobile, different build to Lazarus and that. But, fantastic player.
Ultra consistent.
Yeah, definitely.
You hear people talk about the difference between Cameron Smith's good game and bad game is very little. I'd almost argue that the difference in a good game and a bad game by Harrigan was probably less. God damn, he was just so reliable. You just got the same brilliant performance from him no matter what game he was playing in, no matter what week it was. Brilliant player. The other back rower, Mark Geyer, 21 years old, played 59 games for Penrith at that stage and 1 Origin game.
Unbelievable player. Like maybe the biggest player in this whole side we've named. Incredible footwork, incredible size, incredible ball handling skills as well.
Yeah, but he had a good passing game, left and right, which was very rare for a back rower. and aggressive. And not in a way that people are going to think. People are going to think aggressive and think, oh, that's that 91 Origin thing. No, he was aggressive in the sense that every run was hard. Every tackle was hard. To the point where players would avoid running at him and players would want to defend on the other side to him. Because he's just raw-boned.
And as a young player, intimidating.
Yeah.
Like as a youngster.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
He was a beast.
Yeah, he really was, and should have played so much more for New South Wales. I mean, he should be one of New South Wales' most capped forwards. Should have played so much more Test footy. Is obviously a Penrith Panthers legend. I can't speak highly enough about him.
Absolutely. I'm just trying to think of someone who'd be similar to him in the modern game. It's hard to sort of place someone.
I can't think of anyone, eh?
The closest I could probably get would be, as far as skill-wise goes, it'd be Luke Lewis. As far as ball running goes, because you'd have to build him out of a few different players.
That's the thing, because like you're looking for. I mean, just who do you pick for aggression? Like his ball, and the thing was too, he was so much bigger than everyone else at the time as well. Like Mark Eyes, and I've said this before on the podcast. There's a lot of players that you go back, say 30 years. If you put those players in the modern day game, you'd be like, oh my goodness, he's way too small to play. Mark Guy would be like, there'd be a lot of players now that'd be like, fuck, he's massive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you have to throw that in there too, that he was so much bigger that like a lot of his ball playing, he would have been doing over the top of players. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant player. At lock. This is a lock. Bradley Clyde. He was only 19, but had already played 45 games, 2 Origins and 3 Tests.
And really, ended up being one of the greatest locks of all time, lock forwards of all time. Once again, another player with a lot of skill, a winner, an out-and-out winner. Fantastic player. It's incredible to think of a young Bradley Clyde. Hey, I mean, there's another one of these players who it's like you've got the world at your feet, and he went on to achieve so much as a player. It's fantastic to think about. Like, Canberra was so lucky to have him because he was a real foundation of everything they did. Like, there's a lot of other players that get a lot more of the limelight. But he was so consistent and so good. And one of those players that opposition players would always talk about. Fantastic player.
Yeah. And you look at the players who played for Australia before him in the same position. There was Ray Price, and he handed over the role to Wayne Pearce. And at 19 years of age, he unseated Wayne Pearce. And Wayne Pearce wasn't old at that stage. He was still in his late 20s. And he took the Test gig and the Origin gig off Wayne Pearce at 19.
And just it was a foundation of the Test team.
Yeah. Ultimate professional.
He really was.
Wayne Pearce started that whole professionalism thing and all that training and diet stuff and whatnot else. Clyde just had that from the get-go as a teenager and just maintained it.
And I think he'd probably be another one of those players that younger people wouldn't know a great deal about, and it'd be hard to explain to them why he was so good, why he was like, it didn't matter what game it was, it didn't matter if his team won or lost. He was always one of the top players on the field, every single game.
Yep, fully agree. On the bench, we've got Ricky Stewart. Now, this, I think, was his first year after switching codes from rugby union, so he'd already played a few tests, I think, for the Wallabies at this stage. He was 22 and had already played, it was his second year. He played 38 games for the Raiders at this stage.
Okay.
So I think he played for the Wallabies in 87 then. The two things that stand out for Ricky Stewart, though I haven't seen too many players possess since him, is unbelievable long kicking game. and his passing game was insane, especially his dummy passes.
Yeah, and like elite level at both, like maybe top three of all time at both. And it's interesting. I was watching a Canberra game today, and there was a kick that was put in late in the game, and it just dribbled over, and it just before it hit the upright, not the upright, the corner post, and that was Ricky Stewart's game. Like that was he shut down so many games for the Raiders just with his long kicking game and just turning the other team around, walking down for the scrum, turn them around, walk them down for a scrum. He was so good at that, and that become a tactic that you don't even see these days in the game. And I think that a lot of the positional play of wingers that we see now is still influenced by Ricky Stewart's kicking game.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's a big point there is prior to Ricky Stewart coming along, your fullback was the only one who dropped back and he'd field all the kicks. But when Ricky Stewart came along, the fullback wasn't enough to deal with them.
Yeah.
And so you'd have to start putting one or two defenders back. And as soon as you do that and Ricky Stewart's got the ball, he then brings out his other skill, which is his passing game. And he had one of the most lethal long passes. Could throw a long, flat, long pass and not look like he was going to throw one. It just looked like it was going to be a short ball. The technique, man, his passing game was next level.
It really was. And a really huge influence on Andrew Johns with his kicking and his passing game. And that legacy that we see now with all of the time that halfbacks spend kicking the ball and how they kick it, how they drop it, how they hold it when they drop it, it all comes back to Ricky Stewart.
It does. And look, the one thing that I'm always reminded of with Ricky Stewart is his work in that try in the Test series in 1990. He threw an epic dummy, and the English defenders bought it, and he just went into space and ended up setting up a great try for Mal Meninga. That dummy was just a sign of the ability he had to sell a pass like no one else.
Yeah, and what a massive moment for such a young player.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing about a lot of these players in the high pressure moments. Like it was like they were veterans, which you don't see often.
Career was dogged by broken legs and injured knees and stuff like that. But God, he was phenomenal.
Yeah, he really was.
Next bench is Gary Larson. He was 22. He'd only played 25 first grade games at that stage. Just an absolute workhorse.
Yeah, and once again, super reliable, a staple of the Queensland team for many years, and he was part of a North Sydney pack that it wasn't as good as the Newcastle pack, but it was one of those packs that was like you had to turn up, otherwise they were going to beat you alone, and they were probably let down by a lot of backs and halves that just couldn't get the job done. And Larson was one of, if not their best forward through that whole era in the mid to late 90s for North Sydney.
Absolutely. Sort of in the same mould as Paul Sirinen, I guess, as a player. Just hard to tackle. Just, raw bone player. Yeah. You always got 100% out of him every week.
Yeah, and the other thing was he talked like he had emphysema.
Yeah. Hey, mate, yeah, it's all good. Next on the bench, we've got Alan Langer. He was 23 in 89. He played 34 games for the Broncos at that stage, 9 Origins and 2 Tests.
Yeah, he was all right. Yeah, what can you say? Like, at this stage... And it was hard to not have him because we both were like, oh yeah, Langer at halfback. And when you picked, said, hang on, look at Edwards' record in 1990, you had to go with Edwards at halfback.
Yeah.
But yeah, Langer, I mean, even at this stage, Langer's one of the staples of Australian Rugby League, of Origin. Fantastic player, obviously. He's going to go on to win a lot of premierships, a lot of State of Origin games, and you kind of knew that he was he was one of the premier halfbacks that we were going to have going forward at this stage, even.
And he was one of the first few players to be told he was too small to play.
Mm.
Proved every single one of them wrong.
I don't know. I think the jury's still out.
And the last bench spot we've got is a very underrated player, despite being a test player, is Brad Mackay.
Yeah.
He was a different type of lock forward. So every lock forward up to this point was your sort of Ray Price, Wayne Pearce, Brad Clyde build. They were big, solid sort of blokes. And Brad Mackay came along and he was kind of built more like a centre or a winger.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Man, he was such great ball skills. Really good defender. Had a good tackling technique. He didn't go high or anything like that. He didn't pull off big hits, but he always stuck to a tackle. And the tackle always stopped the defender the attacker from moving forward. And yeah, big motor on him. Would play the full 80 minutes every time, no worries. And played for quite a few years as well.
Yeah, and another one of those players that just super reliable. Players loved playing with him. Absolutely loved playing with him. Like some of them even now will say like their favourite teammate was Brad Mackay. And yeah, it was a staple of that St George team that were in the early and to mid 90s that was very, very good. Probably a premiership winning side, if not that, for running into some of the best teams that we've seen in the last 30 years. Yeah, just a fantastic player and once again, one of those super professional players as well.
Yeah, phenomenal player. So there they are. The 1989 side was 20.8 years old on average, which was 6 months younger than the under 24 side from 2019.
Yep.
But they played probably about 200 club games more, 5 Origin games more, and 3 Test matches more.
Mm-hmm. And it's crazy when you look at some of the players that we left out of that side, the 1989 side, because they had only played a couple of games that went on to become legends, like out and out legends. It makes you wonder who they are now that we've left out of this 2019 team that we just put together. Who are the ones that we don't even know that are legends and they're just starting their first grade careers? You know, it's so exciting to think about. And rugby league, one of the beautiful things about it is that just when, a legend will wave goodbye and, go into the sunset like a Billy Slater, there's always some young kid that's just pulling on his boots and getting ready to run out in first grade that is the next rugby league legend, the next possible immortal. And it's one of rugby league's greatest strengths.
Exactly. And this shows too pretty strongly that, a lot of people talk about the amount of change in the players and their ability and skills and stuff like that over the years. And you could almost look at this and go, right, over 30 years, the quality certainly hasn't dropped off.
No.
But it also shows that the quality wasn't that bad going back 30 years.
Yeah, both of these teams are full of superstars. They're full of players that have achieved already at this young age that we've selected them at. And yeah, it's funny. I think sometimes people feel as though they feel as though when one era has more stars than the other, or that, back in the old days, they weren't all that good. And I think that when you look at these teams, and these are the players that are just starting their careers in both of these sides that we've selected, it just shows you you never know what's around the corner, hey?
That's right.
You never know where a player's going to end up, and it makes me wonder, what's Latrell Mitchell? What are we going to be talking about Latrell Mitchell when he's 34? What will we be saying about Brandon Smith or? What about Payne Haas in 10 years when he's 29? It beggars belief, and you just don't know. And it's so exciting to see young players develop, and then when you see they get their feet under them in first grade, and then you see them start to dominate first graders, and then they start dominating like State of Origin. It's so much fun to watch.
Absolutely. So, quick question:
Yep.
who'd win this game? The 89 side or the 2019 side?
Oh man, it's a very difficult one. I think there's a bias towards saying the 89 side, right? Because I think it's hard to think of those players without getting those glimpses of the absolute best that they showed you. It's hard to fight against that bias. I would say that the 2019 side stands shoulder to shoulder with them. I think that the potential that they have is absolutely phenomenal, and they could all go on to do incredible things. I think that some of the things that stand out for the 89 team, I think someone like an Offia, who when you look at rugby league records all time across the entire world, he's one of those Don Bradman style statistics that are there that you kind of think it must be a typo.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one thing that stands out for that 89 team. Sean Edwards is the same in many respects. And I think that that's maybe something that's missing from the 2019 team. And that's not through any fault of the players. I think it's just the circumstances of the day.
Yeah, I'd probably, because the hard part here is you're obviously going to go on with hindsight for the 89 team because you know what they went on to achieve. That's part of the reason behind who got picked as well, I guess. But yeah, on paper, I think I'd have to say that the 89 side had the better halves, even in 89.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to argue that given that Edwards had played 15 tests and over 200 first grade games at the age of 22, and Nathan Cleary's played 70 games and 5 origins. It's not a fair matchup.
The other thing is the depth as well, like Langer and Stewart, the next in line, and there's just that's not there for this 2019 team.
That's right. It's hard to pick though because so many things to look at and so many variables and stuff, but. Yeah, there's a bit of favouritism, obviously, to the 89 side, but it'd be damn tight.
I also feel as though that 89 side, it's almost and look, they're all very similar in age. It's like under 20, it's 23 and under team, but it feels like it's a cross section of eras in rugby league in terms of Offia. There's players there that were the stars of the late 80s, but then you've also got someone like a Brad Fittler and even Langer who were playing into the 2000s. And I feel as though it was a cross-section in time in rugby league. And maybe we kind of went back 30 years and we kind of stumbled into that by accident almost, that we picked this one era. I don't think you could pick too many. Like, I think if you went back another 30 years, I don't think you would get the same sort of, estuary between eras that I think this 89 team is.
They were definitely a very special time because you also had players who were... they also had to learn the difference between the 5-metre rule and the 10-metre rule because that came in the following year.
Yeah.
The interchange rule was constantly changing, so the forwards were different then. They didn't get to have as many breaks. Like if you went off back in 89 as a forward, you didn't come back onto the field. And there was only 2 substitutes allowed for most of the 80s. I think by 89 it got to 4 maximum. Mm-hmm. But the coach very rarely wanted to take players off the field unless he really had to. So players like Lazarus would often play 80 minutes, which is insane for a big man.
Yeah, proper big man too. He's another one of those players. Bring him into today's game and he wouldn't be out of place.
That's right. So, it's interesting to see how that would impact it. I mean, obviously, the fitness of the modern player is miles ahead of those from the 80s as well, so that's another factor to throw in there. So, yeah, it's hard to pick between the two, but I think, yeah, rose-coloured glasses suggest that the 89 team would get up.
And I think that the last thing to keep in mind is that, and I know you will agree with me on this, all the best things were made in the 80s. All of them. The very best things come out of the 80s.
Fully agree. Fully agree. That's not up for debate at all.
Unquestionable.
Yeah, I mean, that's a stunning note to leave it on. The 80s produced everything brilliant.
Yeah, and never bettered.
Never bettered, no.
The best experts, best commentators, best statisticians, best podcast producers, hey?
Yeah, best SEO experts.
Yep. Best super gurus.
Are just all there.
Best authors and historians.
They're all the best opinion writers.
Yep, definitely. What else? I think that pretty much covers it, eh?
Best social media influencers.
Yeah, influencers. Oh, man. Basically, we're so damn good.
Yeah.
That's what the lead up to this whole podcast was. We were like, what can we end with us saying how good we are? Let's talk a little bit of footy.
Yeah, and then end it with bragging.
Yeah.
We are just fantastic.
You're so privileged to be listening to us right now.
Absolutely. Right, well, that wraps up a magnificent episode.
Yeah, another one.
Yeah. By all means, people, leave some comments on the episodes and tell us what you think. That's the whole idea of this thing. Get involved, get interactive. You can respond to the tweets that mentions the episode when it's live.
Yeah, and tell us your favourite players too of the two teams. Like maybe one of your favourite players from the 89 team and one of your favourite ones from the 2019 team. Would love to hear opinions on that. It'll be fantastic to hear what you've got to say.
Absolutely. And also, you can comment on the episode when it goes up on YouTube. Get in there and watch it on there, and leave some comments in there. We'll have a chat with you too on there. You can follow us on Twitter, the Fergo Freak Pod. Obviously, it's at League Freak and at Andrew RP. We're always up for a chat, so get in there and get involved, and good comments and stuff like that, or even any old conversation we might even mention on the next either podcast or live show. So don't be afraid. Get in there.
Yeah.
Hook in.
Yeah. Be involved, and also follow at the Starting Block. Drop the K on Twitter because they are our brothers.
Oh yeah, they are. I dare say too, they're also from the 1980s.
No doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. They have to be. With that much quality, I mean, you only see that quality from the 80s.
They are magnificent people.
They really
if
are.
you haven't got years around them yet, you need to.
Definitely. We highly recommend them.
And then higher still. They're on another echelon.
Yeah.
They are. Alrighty, people. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you again next time.